Hello and welcome back everyone. We're of course back for yet another guide on Hypixel Skyblock, and today's guide is all about what pets you should be getting in the early game. But I have a big question for you to start with. Have you ever been in the auction house? Have you ever gone into the auction house itself, been looking through pets, and just seen so many different options in your relatively low price range? Well, if you have, then this is the video for you. Today we're going to be talking about what pets to go for and which pets to kind of go for to specialize for your playstyle more specifically. So, with that, let's get started. Now, the absolute first pet anyone and everyone should get, in my opinion, is the bee pet. Now, when you are first starting, this is going to be a tremendously helpful pet for you because it'll give you a bit of everything. It'll give you speed for when you're running around farming, mining, killing, all that. Strength for when you're, of course, killing things because you need to actually be able to kill them. Intelligence for when you're finally able to use either a rogue sword or a aspect of the end and you need to get around a bit quicker. It'll give you a bit of everything that you need in the very early game, but its usefulness will dwindle as you get better and better stuff and better pets. So I would suggest, just rushing, getting this as fast as you can, and hopefully if you get lucky and if you get enough money, I would suggest getting the rare tier just for the extra pet score, because the more pet score you have, the more magic find you will get, which will be extremely helpful later in the game. But if you're just starting out, if you want a pet as fast as possible, go for this, and then just run around farming and you'll be able to level it up in no time at all. Now for this next pet, we are of course going to be going to the spider's den, and we are going to be dashing up here as fast as possible. Now, if you don't have an aspect of the end, there is of course a parkour all the way around, but of course teleporting is faster, so gotta do that. Anyway, once you run up here, go up the stairs, you will be greeted by the good old grandmother wolf. Now, when you talk to her, the answer she will give you is going to be a bit different than mine, because of course she's saying, she already upgraded mine to maximum tier, all that, because of course she has. But if you first are coming here, and if you're talking to her for the first time, then she's going to give you the good old Grandma Wolf pet. Now this is another good pet, but not just good in the beginning, this is good through your entire time playing Skyblock. Now you may be wondering, how could it be good all the way up to having a golden dragon and full Necron and all that? Well, it's really simple, because you don't actually have to use it for it to be helpful for you. This will give you a combo anytime you get kills on zombies, wolves, whatever else you may be killing. It'll give you a combo that will give the effects that you see on the screen right now. Magic find, more coins when you get a kill, more combat wisdom, all that. It will of course give, 100 health, 25 strength by the time you level it up to level 100. But by the time you could do that, there's really so many better pets that you might as well just leave this in the background of your pet menu, just to give you those combos. Now, you may also be wondering how I get it to, be the maximum tier. Well, as you level up your bestiary, which is of course right here, you will see that mine is currently level 12, which is very much so not that high. I really need to level it up a bit more. I just have not been focusing on that in the slightest. I've mainly been focusing on, making money through bizarre flips and all that. But anyway, once you level that up a bit, and then you talk to Grandma Wolf again, she will just take your pet, she'll level it up, and then she'll give it back to you. Well, not level it up level-wise, but tier-wise. Anyway, on to the next pet. Now this next one is actually the rock pet. This is going to be another pet that you don't really have to do much of anything for, except for mining. Now this pet is one of the weirdest to obtain in the game because you will get it, once again, just simply by mining. Now, you won't get it by mining basic stone like that, but you can get it by mining cobble like that because it's technically considered an ore for some reason. Or you can also, of course, mine any other ore, gold, iron, not copper, that's not in this version, lapis, any of that. And once you reach a certain amount, then you will get the common one, as you keep mining more and more and more and more, you will get, uncommon, rare, all that. And it'll take a ton of mining, but in the end it will be worth it, because if you can grind out the mining, you can actually get the legendary one, which, if you're not very into the stats that it gives, if you're not a big fan of being a tank, you can actually sell the legendary one at the pet building, if you just go up here, for 10 million coins to this individual here. Now, the next pets that I'm going to be talking about are the specialized pets that you're going to be most likely buying from the auction house, or either crafting, or, buying from a traveling zoo, or something like that. The ones you won't get from just random NPCs for doing essentially nothing. Now, to start off, once again, you may have at some point in life gone through the auction house looking for pets and seen a ton of different options. Now, let me just say, the Enderman pet, you're sure to see this one if you ever look through for pets. It's good for crit damage, and if you end up really liking it, it can be great in the late game once you have it at a high tier, but to get it at that high tier, it is very expensive. As you can see here, it starts out at 500, 3,000, very cheap. But once we start getting into the legendary tier, it gets very expensive due to the fact that it has that little ability called Zealot Madness, which will increase your odds to find a special zealot and get a summoning eye. And if we take that even farther and go for Mythic, then you will see that you gain another one called Enderman Slayer, which will grant combat wisdom against Enderman. So that'll be great for when you're trying to do a good old Void Gloom Slayer, and you need to kill a bunch of Endermen, get a bunch of combat XP, and then spawn it in. That'll be very helpful for that. And as you can see, when you have this thing at level 100, you'll get 75% crit damage, which is one of the best crit damages that I've seen in this entire game, on a pet, of course. And you'll take 30% less damage from end monsters, and just all around the buffs are very helpful for if you are constantly in the end and fighting void glooms and all that. Now, the next one you're gonna see very often when you're looking for pets is the Armadillo pet. Now, this is a very, very good pet if you are a miner. Now, if you don't mine, if you don't, go into the Crystal Hollows, then this is not going to be helpful for you in the slightest, in all honesty, because the only real use for this is if you're in the Crystal Hollows, which requires you to be Heart of Mountain 3 in the Dwarven Mines, which requires some mining in the deep caverns. I will do a guide on mining very soon, but in short, Crystal Hollows is the last area where you go mining, really, and if you are, a fan of mining, then you can get there really easily and quickly. Well, not really easily and quickly, but pretty quick. And this will be your best friend once you get a pickaxe that can break the stone and the ores and all that are there, because it will literally shred through anything in your path as long as your pickaxe can break it. So, say for example, if you have a Pico Nimbus with a breaking power of 7, you can break almost anything in the Crystal Hollows, almost any crystal, you can break the mithril, you can break the stone, and you can get so much mining XP just by riding this Armadillo pet and destroying anything in your path. So essentially, if you don't mine, then don't get the Armadillo pet, but if you do mine, and if you're in the Crystal Hollows, or at least near to getting into them, then you should absolutely get the Armadillo pet, and prepare to get a ton of super easy mining XP. Now, I could keep talking about the random other pets that you're going to find when looking for pets, the ghoul pet, the rabbit pet, the blue whale pet, all of these pets, but in all honesty, there's not much point to. The ghoul pet, no one uses. I haven't even heard or seen someone using it ever. The rabbit pet is okay if you're into farming, but there's better options, and it's just not too special. The blue whale pet is pretty good for if you're trying to be a tank, but the rock pet or the armadillo pet will give defense, whereas that will give the same amount of health that those would give in defense, and defense is of course more helpful because it is defending you. So there's a bunch of pets here that just no one really uses. And that's kind of for a reason. You know, if they're so cheap, there's a reason they're that cheap. But as you continue to look forward, you'll see better and better pets. But I'm not going to just scroll through every page of the auction house and tell you what each pet does and whether it's worth it or not. That would both be a very long video and be very uninteresting. But what I am going to do is tell you the best pets to kind of aim for depending on the playstyle that you may be choosing. So let's get started on that. Now, if you are looking for raw, just single hit damage, then the lion is going to be your best friend. Now, the lion you will be able to get for pretty cheap through the traveling zoo. And I say pretty cheap very loosely. It still can be upwards of like 15 million coins if I recall correctly for the legendary one. But it's absolutely worth it. Because when you get a rare lion, you will obtain the ability First Pounce. Or, well, the lion will, but you'll be able to use it. And that ability, once you get the lion leveled up, will give more and more percentage of effectiveness to your first strike, your triple strike, all that. And for those of you that might not know exactly what first strike does, when you have first strike 4 on a weapon, the first hit on an enemy will deal double damage. It'll plus 100% damage. So, if you have a max level lion, you'll be dealing plus 100% of that, or that'll be 100% more effective. So essentially you're doubling the double, which of course 2 times 2, you're going to be dealing about 4 times the damage as your normal weapon without any first strike would do. Now, as you can also notice, you will get some speed, you'll get a good amount of strength, and you will get a good amount of ferocity. Not a ton, but a good little bit. You'll also get King of the Jungle with a legendary rarity, which is very helpful, and you'll get plus 20 damage and plus 20 strength to your weapons, all of which are going to help to make this pet incredible for relatively cheap in comparison one-hit raw damage. So, for example, let's see, you know, an alright level epic pet is 6.5 million. That's really not bad. Especially considering, you know, these are with good items. Dwarf Turtle Shelmet, that's about 1 million just in and of itself. So, you always want to look at the pet item too. Now, another thing is, these are relatively cheap in comparison to other pets, as I said. Sure, the most expensive one will be, you know, 74 million, whatever, but the most expensive one's always going to be expensive. That's the point of it being the most expensive. Say you're looking for an alright level epic pet right here. See, level 77, level 77 again, you know, 78. These are okay levels. They're 6.5 million coins, which really is not that bad for 79% more effectiveness for your first strike, you know, good amount of strength, good amount of all that still. And it has a Dwarf Turtle Shelmet already on it, which in and of itself, a Dwarf Turtle Shelmet is about 1 million coins last I saw. It might even be more. So you're essentially paying 5 million for this pet, instead of that 6.5 million that you actually see, because it comes with that item. Now, to just show exactly how effective this pet is, I'm going to completely unequip it, and let's see my damage with my Livid Dagger. With a front hit, or I think that one counted as a back hit for some reason, but with the front hit, it did about 40k damage, back hit, about 70k. So, that's an alright amount. But when I equip that lion again, and I find something to hit with a back hit, or, well, I think that counted as a front hit, but when I do finally get a back hit, it'll deal over 130,000 damage, so that's about double, you know, about as much as my pet increases the percentage of first strike with, and, you know, that's about as you would expect it to be, but if you were to compare that to another pet, say an Enderman, right here, this of course is not a high level one because I don't use an Enderman, but if I hit something with this, it would not do anywhere near as much damage. So if you are going for raw, just one hit, absolute, entirely amazing amounts of damage, the lion is going to be your best friend in the early to mid game. But if you, say, aren't using a livid dagger and need a bit more crit chance, or if you need a bit more defense and intelligence and all that while still being very offensively capable, then I highly suggest the Wither Skeleton pet. Now, I don't use this because, once again, I like that raw damage of the lion pet, but if you get a epic one of these pets, they're pretty cheap, as you can see here. Level 1 is not even 200k, and you're going to take less damage from skeletons, you're going to deal more damage to wither mobs, which is going to be very helpful in the Crimson Isles and in the later tiers of the dungeon, or floors of the dungeon, and you're going to get a little bit of everything. Think of how I explained the bee, but a whole lot better. You know, you're getting defense, strength, intelligence, crit chance, crit damage. You're getting a bit of everything that's going to help for a fight. And this is technically a mining pet, so if you have a bunch of mining minions set up, then you can, you know, take all the resources from those, and the XP will help this one more than it would, say, a farming pet. And then if you do invest the money into getting a legendary pet, then you will also get the ability called Death's Touch, which will give the wither effect and deal a certain percentage of damage over 3 seconds. Now for this level 92 one right here, it's going to deal 184% damage over 3 seconds, which is an amazing amount. So if you're looking for an all-around fighting pet that'll do a bit of everything and pretty well, the Wither Skeleton's going to be your best friend. Now, say in a world you're playing mage, you know, not this world of course, because it's way too expensive in this economy, but in a world where you were to be playing mage, what pet would you want then? Because, you know, those are good melee pets, but what about being a mage? Well, you're gonna want the sheep pet. This is way more expensive than the Wither Skeleton, and more expensive than the lion on the low end, but not quite as expensive on the high end for the epic. But the reason you're going to want this pet is it will give intelligence, it will give ability damage, it will reduce mana cost for your abilities, which is going to be insane for those later game abilities that are upwards of 500 mana. Some I think are even 1,000. So you're cutting off 20% of that with a level 100 sheep. And it'll give a 10% shield after not taking damage for 10 seconds, and if you go as far as to get a legendary, you can also get increased total mana while in a dungeon, which is going to be insane because even outside of a dungeon with a mediocre mage setup, very early game mage setup, you can have over 1,000 mana easily. So, with that armor dungeonified and all that, you can easily have tons and tons of mana in a dungeon, and then you can just slap on another 25% of that mana. So if you're a mage looking for a very mage helpful pet, then go straight for that sheep pet. Now say you're an archer. Archers are very, very good in dungeons, especially once you have a Juju shortbow unlocked. And, you know, say you just unlocked the Juju shortbow, say you just bought one, so you're getting yourself all set up for it, and you want a pet to match the whole ensemble. Well, what pet do you go with then? Because you could go with a lion pet or something like that, you know, the strength and all that is always helpful. Or, you could go for a skeleton pet of any kind. Now, the skeleton horse has its own pluses and minuses, of course. It will have the ride into battle effect, or ability, which will give plus 40% bow damage while riding the horse, but the other abilities are not going to be very helpful for when you're becoming a archer in dungeons, compared to the normal skeleton, which will have 15% crit chance, which is amazing, 30% crit damage, which could be better, but still is not bad. You're going to have 20% arrow damage while outside of dungeons, and 60 when you're inside dungeons, which is incredible. You're gonna have all these other abilities. It's just going to be very, very helpful for you if you're trying to be an archer in dungeons. So, if you're trying to be an archer in dungeons, once again, go for that normal skeleton pet. Leave the skeleton horse alone. It's way too expensive, way too random with its stats, just not good. But definitely go with the normal skeleton. But what about the other things that someone might do in Skyblock? You know, there's a lot of very unique pets that you can get too. There's the bat pet, which is only really going to be helpful for the Halloween event. There's the Jerry pet, which just does nothing except for negatively impact you by taking away a bit of intelligence. There's the Tarantula pet, which is going to generally be very useless unless if you don't have any other combat pets. But if you're fighting Arachne in the early game, before you have a better pet, of course, it can actually be pretty helpful because it makes the anti-healing less effective against you, which, in other words, is very stupidly effective poison. Now, then there's the pets that, of course, will help with certain skills. You know, with either fortune for the skill, like a monkey will give, or foraging wisdom, like an ocelot will give. Now, wisdom, of course, will help you level up faster, and fortune will, of course, increase your chance of getting double the item. So, it's always good to look out for these types of pets if you are trying to level a specific skill. So, say you just dread foraging, just buy a good old tree capitator and a good old ocelot, pretty expensive, but might be worth it if you level it up a bit, and just go ham, and you'll have foraging leveled up in no time at all. Now, there are actually two more pets that are kind of, let's just say, honorable mentions for the Berserker class, because I did, of course, say my personal favorites, but if you want to kind of vary a little bit, you know, here are some more options. There is, of course, the Tiger, which is very expensive, you know, upwards of 110 million coins. This one's over 1 billion, but it will give a ton of ferocity, which increases the chance of hitting something multiple times. So, a very helpful stat. It'll give some strength, tons of crit damage, bit of crit chance, and just all around good stats. So, if you say don't like the lion, this is kind of its alternative. Now, the next one I want to talk about is the Griffin. This one, through the auction house, is extremely expensive, but when Diana is mayor, you can actually get one for about 25,000 coins, if I remember correctly. And it's another one that's going to be a pretty good all-around fighting pet. You know, it's going to give you a bit of everything: strength, intelligence, crit chance, crit damage, magic find, which is very helpful. And it's specifically helpful when you are in the Diana event, you know, when Diana is mayor and you can do the mythological creatures and all that. But as you rank it up in its rarity, which is very expensive, but as you do, you'll get Legendary Constitution, which will give permanent regeneration and strength of varying levels depending on the level and rarity and all that. And you'll heal nearby players for 20% of the final damage you receive. And you'll gain strength when above a certain amount of health, which is a great stat. So all around, if you've got a bit more money to spend and you want a magic find all-around fighting pet, the Griffin's probably going to be one of your main go-to ones, especially for that permanent potion effects, or those permanent potion effects. And just one more little honorable mention, this time for the tank class. There is, of course, the blue whale pet. Now, I kind of went over this a bit, very slightly a bit ago, but this pet is going to be another option for the tank class, once again. And as you get to the late levels and all that of it, you will see it's going to have 200 health, which is very solid, but once again, the rock pet and other pets like it will give just as much defense, which in my opinion is more helpful. But if you're making a health-based build, so say you're going for Mastiff Armor and all that, this might also help way more than defense would, considering that Mastiff Armor takes away defense. It also will heal you by a bunch of health anytime you take a potion. It'll give defense per health, or per 20 max health, and it'll gain 20% more max health, which, once again, when you're dealing with something like Mastiff Armor, 20% is going to be a ton. So, if you are going for a Mastiff Armor build, the Blue Whale might be a great choice for you. Anyway, that is of course all for today. Hopefully I got all of the main ones that someone could need, but if not, feel free to leave a comment down below, and also definitely make sure to comment down below what your favorite pet is, and if you got this far in the video. Now, if this video has helped you at all, definitely make sure to leave a like, it helps out a ton, and definitely make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell as well if this kind of content has helped you at all. I make tons of these kinds of guides, and I plan to keep making more and more as time goes on, and any support helps a ton. We are of course still trying to get to 500 subscribers, and we are getting closer by the day. So, with that, thank you all very much for watching, till next time everyone, and goodbye.